and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, this is my workshop, and if you're following me you know I'm building another amazing kit from Armortek, and this time it's the 1:6 scale Series 1 Land Rover. And where we left off last time, I had got the chassis painted. I'd assembled the rear axle, and we painted the springs, we painted the axles, and we assembled it all back onto the chassis, but we haven't set out the actual position of the axles just yet. So today's session will be about setting those out. I've got some finite dimensions I need to follow in the Armortek instructions. I'll show you my method of doing that. Then I'm going to go on, and once these are set into position, I'll be able to set these little shock absorbers to the height. I'll get these painted, and we'll get these installed on the frame as well. And then I'm going to go on and install the servo for the steering, and I'll get some power to that and do some testing just to see if the steering's working correctly. And if I get time today, I may start looking at the gearbox, but I'm going to, as I said before, I set parameters of what my expectations are for my own goals for each building session. And if I get all of this that I've just talked about done today without any mishaps and any issues, then I'll be pleased with that. And if I get time, I will start looking ahead. But that's the plan. So I'm going to reset the camera and we'll get cracking. Right, so we're going to work on the front first, and Armortek give us a dimension of 87 millimeters using the front face of the bumper. So I'm going to put this bumper on just as a temporary. I love the contrast actually with the sort of the aluminium and the chassis, and what I'm probably going to do, because there's I think there's a plate that there should be a plate that goes on here, which I think is to do with something to do with the towing potentially, or a winch in the real thing. But I think there's another bit of work to be done to this, so when it's done I will probably end up painting this. Just notice some strange marks on that, so they'll have to be rubbed down. I will I've got some galvanized paint that I've experimented with, and I think the results are quite good, so I think I'll do that, and then I'll also do all the other galvanized parts. But anyway, I am sidetracking as I always do. So the bumper's on, and make sure that's on as tight as it possibly can go. I'm not going to fix it, and then I'm going to use my little square here. It's an adjustable square, and I'm going to get it at exactly what they asked me to, which is 87 millimeters. So I'm just going to rock that to, that's 85, 80, 87. Bang on, tighten that up. Now I've got the chassis elevated on a couple of bits of wood. And what I'm going to do now, that's locked in at 87 millimeters. I know that's exactly where it should be, and I don't know if you can see that. I can see that the axle needs to move further forward to the front of the Land Rover. So what I'll probably do now is use my little grips, get that so I can freely move the axle without losing where it's got to go. Awkward. Get that nice and tight so that's not going to move. So now that's set at 87 millimeters. I can push the axle into position. I will check both sides, but just slowly moving that up. So that axle now on this side is exactly 87 millimeters. So what I'm probably going to do is tighten off a couple of the nuts just to hold that, stop that from slipping when I do the other side. We'll do a bit more work on that, but I just wanted to get that locked. Now I'll flip that. Just open that up a tad. Actually, that is absolutely bang on where it should be, I think. Is it? Yes, it is. Absolutely bang on. So it's moved perfectly in line and square to the other side. So just checking that. 87, bang on. Actually, it's slipped a bit, so slacken that off. I want to get this as accurate as I possibly can. It's all to do with how the Rover is going to operate. Making sure that's on still tight. we do coming this way a little bit. Just, no, there's it. No, that's it. That's 87. That's nice and tight. That's nice and tight. So now, hoping that doesn't move while I'm tightening up, and I will check it afterwards. Just do one nut for now. It's not going anywhere. That's perfect and perfect. So I'm really happy that that is now in its position that it should be. It seems right. It seems to be over the bump stops, which is about right. I guess we'll know, but if it's according to the instructions, it's 87 millimeters both sides. So I'm really happy with that, and I can now go ahead and tighten up. And what I'll probably do is I'm just going to put a little bit of thread locker just on the surface of this, and that's going to help me just stop it from unwinding, because it will find its way through the thread. You should imagine this is going to get a lot of abuse, certainly a lot of usage. Now I can tighten that up. I will check it just one last time before we move on to the back. It's a bit awkward because that's up against the area where you've got to screw the little suspension, the shock absorber into. So we'll do it the other way around. Get that to hold, and you will inevitably damage the paint while you're doing this, but don't worry too much. Because you can always touch that up, and I probably will, because I want to tighten I want to paint these nuts. I've decided I will do them. I was deliberating it, but I'm now decided that's what I'm doing. So we're getting there. As I said, a little bit awkward because of where it is, but that's it, nice and tight. Just going to check that again in case something untoward has happened. And it hasn't. That's perfect. That's perfect. So what we're looking to align is this edge here, and I'm using the square on the bumper. There we go. Don't know if you can see that. And it's got 87 mil. So it's nice and square on that. Nice and square on that. Hopefully that comes out in the camera. So this is probably the best tool to be able to do this with, I think. Yeah, I guess you could do it with a tape measure, but I think always worry about tape measures. Tape measures are fine when you're dealing with large scale things, but when you're dealing with small scale things, I think you just need the confidence of something like that, a nice engineered square like that, an adjustable square. So I'll move on and we'll do the back exactly the same way. Right, so I'm just going to spin this around. So we're working on a better side, and this time it's asking us to set the dimension from the back of the chassis to this wider section. Oh, I don't know if you can see that, this wider section of the axle, not the thinner section as it was on the front. So I'm now going to be setting to this point from this point here, and it's asking us to set that at a dimension of 108 millimeters. So as before, I'll just slacken this off, take this up to 108. I mean, that seemed pretty accurate. I've been worried if, having said that, you know, if we were getting down to you know, 108.3 millimeters, I'd have been very worried, because very difficult to do this with the tools I've got. But I'm happy with that. That's 108 dead on. Tighten that up so that doesn't go anywhere. And now what we're looking for is to get this block here aligned. Move that out of the way. to 108, and I can see it's got to move quite a distance. So that's, I mean, I'll clamp this in a minute, but that's 108 to that point there. Off the back of that, I'm just double checking that. I'm just making sure I don't mess this up. So 108, yes, we've got that set 108. So let's put my little clamp on that so we can get that be confident and then work. So a little bit awkward. That's nice and tight on there. It's nice and flat, making sure that is flat. It's not doing anything silly. So that is, let me just move that up a bit. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that I've got this, you know, as accurate as possible. That's it, that's better. So that's it, sitting at 108, and we'll just move that into position like that. Now that's there. So I'm just gonna, as I did before, just tighten one of these up just to kind of stop it from sliding while I do the other side. It's a little bit more awkward, but it is jolly awkward. Oh, there we go. Get it on there. Don't need to clamp it this time because it's, I've got it set nicely there. So that's 108. Just lock that down with the 1. Come back to this point, double check, hasn't moved at all. Perfect. Really happy with that. Now we'll do the same thing again, just put some thread locker on these to stop them from winding or unwinding. I don't want to take these nuts off and do them. It will get into the little gaps and it will stop that from wanting to unwind over time. And what we'll do is we'll just tighten that off now, wipe the excess off, and then I will probably spot paint it just to get the colour, and also to stop these from rusting over time. So obviously this is going to be exposed to any road surface, or you know, if you're going off-road across grass and wet damp areas, so it's definitely going to get rusty. So I don't want that to deteriorate. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that probably off camera. I think you all know how to, well, you've seen enough of my painting videos now. I mean, I will, when I come to paint the body, I will of course film that. If that's something you'd like to see, obviously let me know in the comments, but I will film it. That's it, all tight, all looking good, really pleased, and that's that. Really simple, really simple. I think using something like this actually works really well if you've got one of these. Again, if you don't, you know, I'd recommend the investment. They're a great tool anyway, and they're quite inexpensive for what they are. We'll now crack on. I'll do a bit of cleaning up on this, probably spot paint it, and then I'll flip it over and we'll do the we'll start looking at the servo for the steering. No, I won't. Stop that. Sorry, scratch that. I'm now going to go and do the my little suspension. But so yes, sorry about that. We'll do that in a moment. Shock absorbers. Right, so I've just turned the chassis on its side. I'm using one of my clamps just to hold it in place to allow me to work on the rear of the chassis with the setting out of the first shock absorber. So what I'll do is I'll just zoom in so you can see a little bit better. Now we've got a hole in the chassis here, there, and we've got a hole in the plate, the retaining plate for the, or a threaded hole for the in the plate that retains the spring. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to, and it's the housing part that of the shock absorber, the two-part shock absorber that goes onto the main chassis. So I'm going to just use this little pin tool just to keep that just in that position. Using another tool, pull the other part of the shock absorber out, and that gives me the position of the shock absorber. So I'm just going to mark where I want to, that's pretty much where it's going to be. So now I can then take this off. Can you see that? And that tells me the distance. So you know, I know it's not going to be like that, so that's as far as I need to paint it really. There will be a bit of movement, but I don't want to go ahead and paint the whole thing, because the experience of doing the M26 meant I had to clean it all up to allow it to work. So that's going to be my marker for that, and that allows me then to take another shock absorber and just set it at the same distance, and that'll be the two back ones. I'll go ahead now and I'll do exactly the same for the front, and I'll just switch the camera around so you can see that. So this is the front, and as before, the housing part actually goes into this little raised area onto the on the main chassis, and then this just comes down and goes onto the main spring plate support, and that's that. And now I can mark that, and that tells me what I need for the front ones. I can't wait to see how these work actually, because they worked brilliantly on the M26, so we'll see. So that'll be the two front ones. I'm going to go and get these painted, primed and painted, and then we'll get them onto the chassis. Right, so while I'm waiting for the shock absorbers to dry, I thought I'd install this bracket which holds the servo for the steering. So I'm not going to use thread locker on this, because it's going into the aluminium chassis, so it should bite nicely. So let's just hold that one just there. This is a brilliant tool. I just love this because of the ball end on it. It allows you to work at a bit of an angle, which you're going to have to do to install this. And again, I think it just reiterates the importance, if you can, to and I'm banging on about it, but I'm learning all the time that without the motion pack, this is going to be awkward. So I'm just going to get that round into that position. I might use this to, no, I just use that to get in, to start the, there you go. Is it going in? Hold that there. It's just awkward angle. So perseverance is the key here. Just making sure that it's lined up. It's just a little bit, just binding a little bit, because it just needs to be dropped down a bit. Pick that up. Again, it's warts and all, guys. So I'll do that again, just to get that located in the hole. And then we get, there we go, that should go now. It's off and running now. Yeah, so sorry, what I was saying was the fact that, you know, you've got to put this in, to put the servo in. You may have put the bulkhead and you may have gone ahead and started building the body up, but I don't know how you get to this with the rest of the static build. That's nice and tight. So the servo, just be careful not to lose the arm and the screw. The servo goes in the top part there, but as always, you've got these sort of angled parts here, which I'm going to have to cut out to allow that to fit flush. So let's do that now. Just zoom that out. There we go. This is the time you have to be so careful. Got a very sharp blade in my Stanley. That's the cut down. Let me just cut that out. This just allows me to sit the servo flush. If you're doing this, be very, very careful. The last thing you'll do is cut yourself and damage yourself. I think that should work. Let's just pop that in there now. Yeah, that's it. That sits in there now. Nice, without rocking too much. A little bit of rock on it, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. That's going to be supported with 4 little butt M3 butt screws and nuts. And then the servo arm will go on the end of that. But what I must do first is get this powered up so it sort of centralizes itself. So I'll show you how I'll do that. I'll just go and get everything I need to get started, and I'll show you. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and just test this servo, and also Armortek do suggest that you align the servo so to get it to its because obviously during the process of packing and everything else, the servo arm can move, although the servo arm's not on there, but the servo itself can move. So they recommend you get it straight, and so a very simple way of doing that. Right, so first and foremost, this is the battery that Armortek recommend. It's quite readily sort of available on that sort of big American sort of website that delivers things within hours of you ordering it. So it's there, and it's actually, well, I've got it at a very good deal. So this is the battery, exactly what the Armortek recommend. So I'll get this out, and I think it should go without saying, but if you're dealing with LiPo batteries, you need to be very aware and very conscious of safety. I've got a battery safe that I'll put this in when I'm charging it, and if I'm storing it and not using it, and it's a sort of a fire safe. I will probably show you. Well, let me show you that. I'll just briefly show you that. I've got another battery in it at the moment, but that's it. It's called a HobbyMate, and I'll show you a bit more when the camera's zoomed out a bit. But it is a fireproof bag. I've never had to test it. I don't want to test it. Lots of people on the internet have tested it. So this is the battery. It comes with this T connector here. You just need to get some adapters. Again, these are readily available anywhere on the internet. That just plugs in there, and then that will give us good connection to any of the wiring or electronics that Armortek have supplied with the motion pack. So that's that ready to go. Then I'm going to use my servo tester, this little device here. Again, very cheap to buy from any model store or online on the internet. And the first things first, I'm going to plug in the servo itself. So one side is the power supply, which is this end. I mean, they're all pretty much the same. This is a slightly different model, but they're all pretty much. So power goes in this side and the servo goes in this side. And if you're trying to work out, if you're not sure what you're doing, it's clearly marked on here. You've got S for signal, plus for power, and minus for the negative. And in this case, the yellow cable is the signal, and I'm just going to put it into the bottom one, so that just slides in, aligning the cable colours with the diagram on the side of that. So that's the servo connected. Now we just need to connect power, and this is an ESC cable. This will take your deliver really nice, just a very simple voltage to the servo tester. If you do, I mean, I know people do connect batteries directly to these, but from what I understand and what I've learned through bitter experiences, if you do that, you can potentially damage your servo tester, and potentially even worse, damage your servo. So this will be the power supply cable. Again, it's marked clearly on here. So you've got your S, your plus, and your minus. Same thing again. So we'll just put that in there, and now we just need to connect it up to the battery. And what we should see is this lights up, hopefully. So I'm just going to connect that up. There we go. Oh, wow, so it's already, I don't know if you saw that, it actually set itself to, I think it should, so on here, there's a little button down here, and what I want to do is to take it to neutral. There we go. That's it aligned. That tells you that's exactly where that servo should be. Now obviously the arm needs to come off, and it will position itself in a slightly different location according to the instructions, whatever, but that is now centralized. And we can test this by pressing this button here and go, if I go to automatic, it tells me, look, it's showing it running automatically, or if I press it again, I can now control this manually, and that's going to tell me the full range that this servo is going to travel. So that's obviously going to be the range for the steering. So I hope you can see that. So now I'm happy with that. We can install the servo onto the chassis, and then when it's all connected up, we'll connect all this up again and we'll test the steering. Right, okay, so now we're going to try and set the steering in the right position. So obviously the wheels need to be straight. We've aligned the servo. I've now just got to try and work out where the position of this goes. So probably the best bet would be to take the screw that goes into this thing, which is a 12mm butt screw. Hopefully that's going to stay in it, and it does. That helps tremendously. I've just popped the arm on the servo as a temporary, just to see if I've got the right alignment. So I'm just going to bring this over, straighten the wheels up, and see if that, do you know what, I think I've got that spot on. I think that's more luck than judgment though, guys. Now hopefully when I push the servo arm all the way onto the servo and screw it into place, I shouldn't have a problem. So we'll do that. So just push that down onto the servo itself, and then I'll secure that with a little screw fixing that comes with it. Get the right tool. There we go. Don't want it now. Obviously, as I tighten, I'm holding the servo arm because I don't want it to move too much, because I've obviously aligned it. So that's that. Now, awkward. I'm going to try and get this steering arm connected to the servo and then fix the servo, because I need to be able to move it around a bit. This is super awkward. Am I going to be able to get? I think I'm going to have to turn it up on its side. Yeah, because that's a threaded servo arm, so I'll need to turn the chassis on its side so I can get an actual tool behind this to wind it into the servo. So I'll do that. Let me do that and then I'll come straight back to camera. Right, so that's it turned on its side. Let me just pull this back so hopefully you can see a little bit more of what I'm trying to do. Going to pop this servo in. I don't want to fix it just yet because I need a little bit of movement on it to be able to help me line up the steering rack. So I've just got a small little clamp on there to hold that in place, and then I'm just going to take the steering rack and push that screw back in or out so it doesn't bind with the arm. Of course, now I just need to pull the steering up, see if I can get that hole aligned. Not sure if I'm there yet, but let's have a look. This is awkward. Let's just test that is. Would help if I got the right tool, wouldn't it? There you go. Right. Now I think I found it. It's now being fixed in from the back. Hopefully that's going to pop through. That's that. Let's turn that back on its side. Clamp off. So that is there. Before I do anything, so that's aligned. I'm not going to fix this yet. I'm now going to just reattach everything to test again. So I'm going to do exactly the same before. Line up the colours, obviously the yellow cable being the signal cable, red being power. I'll go in the bottom again with that. connect up my battery. Power supply on. There we go. Now let's see if we can get this to work. So that's on manual. Good. Let's see if we can get this to work. So you can see so that seems to be. Let's put it back to neutral. There we go. Just ever so slightly out. So that means I need to bring that arm around one click, I think, because that's at the moment I don't know if you can see that. I'm sure you can. It's slightly turned. If you're looking in plan, slightly turned to the right. So if you've got your controls set to center, your Land Rover is going to be driving off to the right. So I need to just take that swing arm, the little servo arm, and take it back a notch, and I think that will sort it out. So reasons why you don't connect all this up until you're fully happy and fully tested is for that exact reason. So let's just disconnect the power from that and take the servo power off. Keep my clamp on. So what I'll do is I'll just turn this back up on its end, get the clamp back on. I hope this isn't too boring, guys. I just wanted to show you what's involved, and you're kind of learning alongside me. I'm doing this with a great deal of hope. So let's just undo that so I can get the servo arm off. Take the clamp off. It's still attached. Right. So what I need to do is I just need to take this servo arm here and crank it back one notch. Let me turn this up. See if you can see what I'm doing. Holding on to that servo arm while I undo that. Just making sure I'm so that needs to go towards me. It's difficult to do this when it's upside down. Towards me, so that means towards you now. So I need to try and get this arm off and just take it around another notch, and then we'll put the screw back in place and we'll go again. Hopefully now the steering is aligned, but these are the things you have to do when you're building this kind of model. So let me just get this sorted out and I'll be straight back. Sorry, had a bit of a disturbance there. My wife came in, so I just had to stop film. Anyway, my wonderful wife, and I'm going to pop this back in here again. We're going to put the clamp on just to hold that in place temporarily. There we go. And now go again. Hopefully this time we get it right. I mean, I could have completely messed that up and probably got it wrong way around, but as you can see, it's no hardship. The only hardship is getting the Allen driver into the fixing. Oh, that is, I'll tell you what, push that out. Sorry guys, this is frustrating. It's frustrating to you. Can you imagine how what it's like when you're trying to do it right? Let's see if we can get that in there. Is it going in? Yes, it is. Right. So that's that. Let's turn it back the right way round. Leave that clamp on, I think. Right, let's power everything up again. Well worth doing this. Right. That's on full steer. Let's get it back to neutral. Oh, that's so much better. Yes, that's it. And I haven't need that is perfect. That is perfect. I'm not sure if you can see that. And now let's just test the range. Let's go on. Obviously this isn't fixed down yet. Some manual. Put it back to neutral, and just to make sure that let's just, then we go back to neutral and it corrects itself. Perfect, 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 perfect. Really, really pleased with that. So now I can fix this, and so I can take that off and we can get this fixed. I'm just going to disconnect all this and we'll put this servo on, and really, really pleased. And then we'll obviously, hopefully, my paint has dried on the shock absorbers. We can get those installed, and there'll be a bit of a surprise when I put those on. But we'll see how you get on with that. And anyway, I'll be back in a second. Right, so we're going to fix this into place now. All I've got to do now is just pull this out, because I want to get the nut on the end of that. Again, another reason why I didn't want to fix the servo into position. There we go. That's just going to hold that underneath. Just see if I can get that to tighten up, and it's lovely and tight. I'm not going to put any Loctite on that because it's a threaded connection to the servo arm, and I think everything is as it should. Yeah, I think so. Just making sure, yeah, just making sure everything looks right, it feels right, and as you've seen, it all sort of lines up beautifully. So next thing will be just to connect this servo onto the bracket. Hopefully, yeah, they do fit. Sometimes they don't. So that's the first one going in. Yeah, and I've gone a bit off-piste on the colour of the shock absorbers, guys, and I know I'm going to get in trouble with the Land Rover Series 1 community, but I'm doing it in a way that I like, and I'm going to approach it as if I've if you like restored you know, a Series 1 Land Rover, because I've gone for red. I've gone for red shock absorbers. And I'm now going to get into all sorts of trouble over that, I'm sure. But you know, I just wanted to make it look a little bit different. Gone for the RAF scheme, and I don't want to make it like an identical. It's a hobby at the end of the day, and if you're building one of these, you know, just have some fun with it. Don't necessarily have to follow everything as per, you know, what you think the norm, if you like. I mean, I know some of these I've seen a Series 1 fire engine, if you like. Now that would be cool. I'm not brave enough to attempt that, but yeah, that would be cool, right? So awkward. These are so awkward. And yeah, I think I'm going to have to turn that on its side to get those in. Yeah, it kind of helps. I'm going to zoom the camera out a little bit. As I said, I hope you're enjoying this. I'm trying my best to make it enjoyable without showing you too many of the frustrations, but you can see some of the things that we have to do. Let's just see if I can get through there. That is awkward as you like. I might make an executive decision in a minute to just put one of these fixings on. 3 would be plenty, I'm sure. I'm going to carry on because when the camera's on it is a nightmare. So I'm going to carry on and you watch. As soon as the camera goes off, this will be on. Right, so here comes the slightly controversial bit, I think. I've finished my shock absorbers in a red colour. So I just think that they look really smart. I mean, you know, modern, well, actually even early series Land Rovers up to series, I think 2, from series 2 onwards, had a red shock absorber. And I just think that if you do manage to see this in, you know, underneath the wheel arch, it will actually add to the characters of it. So I'm going to apologise to everyone I'm about to offend by using these, but I think I'm happy with it. Oh yeah, so just so you can see, what I've done is I've tried to replicate a little bit of grease on the joints. So when this moves up and down, as it will do, hopefully you can see that it has got some like grease marks. So it's not going to be perfect. Didn't want it to be perfect. So I'm going to put the first one in, but I'm not going to tighten that up because it's quite clear on the instructions. Trying to find the right tool. Not to over tighten the top one. I'm just going to locate it for now. That's that. Push that in, and then we can fix this into the little plate. That can go in quite tight. And then this one, what I'm just going to do is just going to wind that up so that it just, that's it, just to that point there, so it's not over tightening that. Now let's just see if that works. Oh, and it does. Don't know if you can see that, but it's actually moving in and out beautifully. Right, so that's that one. We'll do the other side now. Same again. What I've done there is just, as you can see, I've replicated the grease, if you like. You know, again, look, as I said when I was doing my headset, you know, these kits, you should enjoy building these kits. It's your chance to add a little bit of your personality to the build. And yes, you know, if you want to get it a museum accurate, then you should do something slightly different. But if you want something to enjoy looking at, so it's personalized to you, then I don't think there's any issues with you doing what I'm doing here. And I think once it's all built and you can just capture just a glimpse of the shock absorbers through the wheel arch, then I think it'll look pretty smart. And who doesn't want to see a little bit of red on a car like this? So just, I think that's all it needs to be there. I might actually put some thread locker on that, and let's just see if that works. Oh, look at that. I don't know if you can see that working so beautifully. I'll show you I'll show you when I've got it on its, when it's back on its, when it's flat, if you like. So I'll go on now and I'll do the others. Well, that's it for today's session, and I'm really pleased with progress. I did set myself a target and a really achievable goal, and I've managed to get that done today. And I think that's really important. If you are going to set yourself, or you're on one of these builds, set yourself an achievable target, something that you can achieve in one build session, rather than, you know, trying to achieve too much and then getting frustrated and getting the ump with it. You don't want that. So today was really just about the alignment of the front and rear axles, which went really well, and installing the shock absorbers and the servo for the steering, and just, you know, testing the steering. And it's just what I've done off camera. I went round and I tightened up a lot of the screws that were a little bit loose on the steering rods, and now it's working perfectly. And I guess you know, in my first video of the build, when I assembled the steering part for the front axle. I wasn't happy with how stiff that was. So you may have, I don't know if you've encountered that. I'd be interested to know in the comments if you've had that issue. But I think you're definitely going to need to clean up that axle to make this steering work as sweetly and as beautifully and as smooth as this, because I think if it's binding, if the steering mechanism is binding on that axle part, I think you're going to struggle. So really pleased with that. Pleased with everything really. So let me just disconnect that, put it back to aligned and center, disconnect everything here. So a couple of things of note. When you are doing this and you're putting the plates on here, the retaining plates for the springs, Armortek do say that be careful of these studs. Don't wind them in too far into the main housing of the axle, because that will clash with the shafts that run through. If you remember the shafts that we put on in the last session. So make sure that when you're installing these, that they still, they still rotate freely. And I think it's only the back one that you have to be aware of that. And then the other thing is, you will find there's 2 bits of plastic straps, if you like, in your kit. I was wondering what they were for. Couldn't see them. It wasn't obvious initially in the instructions, but they are the rear axle support straps, and they go in this position here. I don't know if you can see that. So they fix into the chassis, both sides, like that. But they don't mention it until right at the bitter end of the build. Very odd. I don't know why. I hope there's no reason for doing that. But anyway, I thought I've got them. I found them, and I just thought, well, I wanted to complete the chassis. And as far as I'm concerned, that's part of the builder's chassis. The only thing of note with these is they are very small fixings. They're M2 fixings. So be very careful when you're driving them in. Go very gently. You'll have to use a very small hex tool to be able to get them in. And then, as I said, go very smoothly and gently, because they will round off and then you will have a problem. So that is it. So I'll sign off by saying thank you. Thank you if you've joined me for today's session. And if you have and you've enjoyed that, please give me a thumbs up, because it helps the old algorithms. And sorry, I have no idea what they are or whatever they do. But thanks also if you've watched or you're watching the entire series on this build. That means a lot to me. And thanks also for all your amazing support. I love the interaction with you guys. I love all the comments. Please continue to support this channel, because without you, this isn't possible. I can't do this without you and without your support. So a massive thank you for that. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, because we have a long way to go on this amazing Armortek kit. And I also have another tank planned, if you like, for the future. And I'll finally sign off by saying I'm Tony. I love building these kits. Thank you for joining me again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session.